Do you like coffee? I do. And for the next couple minutes, I'd like you to imagine that you do as well, even if you're a bigger fan of something like tea, hot chocolate, hot apple cider, or any of the numerous other delicious treats you might have if you enjoy hot beverages. And you might not. You might only prefer cold beverages. That's fine too. But for the sake of argument, I want you to imagine that this right here is a cup of coffee that I want to describe in an essay. And particularly, I want to show you what my coffee is like rather than telling you what my coffee is like. If I wanted to tell you about my coffee, I would probably say something like, "This is the most delicious cup of coffee in the world." The problem with telling you that this is the most delicious cup of coffee in the world is that you have no idea what I believe a delicious cup of coffee is like. You don't know how I prefer my coffee to be made. You don't know what I prefer to have in my coffee. You don't even know if it's really coffee or if it's something else like chicory root, which is sometimes marketed as coffee but might not meet your definition of coffee. If I tell you that this is a delicious cup of coffee, you don't have any idea what my cup of coffee is really like, whether you would enjoy it, or even the details about what it tastes like, smells like, looks like, and other important qualities. For example, you and I might have very different ideas about how our coffee should be made. This particular cup of coffee that I happen to be holding was made in a drip machine. Some people don't like coffee that was made in drip machines. Some people prefer only instant, or they like Keurig, or they like it to be made in an espresso maker. You don't even know whether this cup of coffee that I'm holding was made with espresso or with regular coffee beans. So instead of telling you this cup of coffee is delicious, I want to give you details. You want to know how thick it is. Does it have milk in it, or does it have one of the numerous kinds of creamers that are available, from whipping cream to half and half to non-dairy creamer to soy milk or almond milk or any of a host of other liquids or powders that people sometimes put in their coffee to make it taste a little bit different. Similarly, you don't know if I have sugar in it, or Splenda, or honey, or maple syrup, or even some flavored coffee creamer, hazelnut perhaps, or Irish cream. Any of these could be in my cup of coffee, but you don't know because I've just told you that it's delicious rather than showing you what that's really like. The same problem exists with pizza. I've told you a lot about Procalinos in the past few days. You might like to know that Procalinos says that it makes Sicilian New York style pizza. I've never been to Sicily and I've actually never had New York pizza, although I have had New Haven pizza, which is kind of similar, I'm told. Procalinos has pretty thin crust, probably less than 1/8 of an inch, and pretty generous toppings, I think. Some of the pieces of Procalinos pizza can be up to 1 inch thick because their toppings are so rich. I was actually a bit disappointed when I tried New Haven pizza because their crust is still very thin, still about or less than 1/8 of an inch, but their toppings are very thin also. In contrast, if you travel to Chicago, they're known for what's called deep dish pizza, and their toppings can be 2 and sometimes even 3 inches thick. You get almost a pie filled with lots of delicious pizza flavors. So for me to tell you that a particular slice of pizza is delicious, if you walk in expecting Chicago-style pizza, you might be very disappointed. However, if I describe the thickness of the pizza so that you can imagine it in your mind's eye, or if I describe the toppings so vividly that you can imagine exactly what sits on top of that pizza, or if I explain to you each set of items that I put into my coffee cup, how I make my coffee, what it tastes like, what aromas it has, whether the beans are dark or light roasted, and how recently I've ground them, you will be able to imagine my cup of coffee as vividly as possible. And when I get to the end of my paragraph, I might tell you that it was delicious, but I hope that I'll have given you enough details along the way that you can either agree with me, or you might say, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm still not a big fan of coffee, and that's okay too. One of the things you'll want to do is to think about avoiding opinion words. Delicious or tasty might be an important one if you're writing a restaurant review. What's delicious to you might not be delicious to me. So you want to describe the flavors so that I can imagine what it tastes like and come up with the conclusion for myself that what you're describing sounds delicious or tasty. Another word that might be tricky in a review might be dirty. Your concept of dirty might be very different from mine. You might think it's okay to have a little dust somewhere. I might not. Or, in contrast, when you say a restaurant is dirty, I might imagine piles of dirt, roaches crawling everywhere. And if that's not what you mean, you want to be precise about dirty because dirty means different things to many different people. Similarly, if you tell me something is beautiful, don't just say, I saw a beautiful sunset. Tell me what colors were in the sunset. Show me that the sunset was beautiful by allowing me to picture its details instead of just referring back to the last beautiful sunset I saw. Whether you're talking about pizza or coffee or sunsets or dirt, giving precise details using concrete words rather than just using an opinion word like pretty or delicious or dirty will help your reader imagine the scene and reach the same conclusions that you're trying to give them along the way.